Today on Locked On Red Wings, Patrick Kane, Shane Gostisbehere, who stays and who goes among Detroit's unrestricted free agents.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fischer and Scotty Bentley. I'm formerly of WWJ and 97.1 The Ticket, while Scotty's a freelance journalist for the Detroit News and the host for Locked On Tigers. It's a 3-game series against the Rays. They won the series officially.
They have won the series. They've won 3 straight. They've won 4 of their last 5. Things are going well in Tigerville, man. Yeah.
Riley Green just launching bombs.
He
Love
is
it.
Unbelievable.
So on today's episode, guys, before that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So today's episode, it's actually kind of funny because we do this every single year. We do who stays, who goes of Detroit's pending free agents. And it was like last night, I look online and our buddy Max Boltman wrote an article about this very topic. And I texted him this morning. I'm like, dude, great minds think alike, because it's the perfect piggyback off of the topics we've been having. Like yesterday, we ended our conversation talking about, roster spots opening up to bring in a little bit of youth and a little bit of veteran impact players. But that's assuming all those players leave, and that might not be the case. So today's a really good opportunity to talk about that. And if you have an opportunity, also go read Max's article, because I think he covers it. He's going to go more in depth than we do. He's going to go more than just, does go into more than just unrestricted free agents as well. He talks about young guys, guys who have contract tenure left who may or may not get moved. So it's a really great article. Give it a read if you got. And here on today's episode, we'll just cover the unrestricted free agents. Yeah.
Well, we also, this is a tradition of a reoccurring episode for us. This is tradition. We, one of the first episodes you and I do every single off season every year has been this, and taking a look at the UFAs and deciding. So it's easy to plan from our perspective because we just do it every single year. But I think that and I feel like I say this every year, but this year, the conversation, I think, is probably the most interesting it's been since we've started, and that's a good sign, because that means the team is getting better and is having more talented UFAs at its disposal.
Yeah, the Red Wings are going to have a total of 8 UFAs on their official roster. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the minor leagues. They'll have a total of 7 UFAs on their NHL roster, more in the Grand Rapids and ECHL system, but we're not going to talk about those guys. We'll focus solely on the guys who are on the NHL roster as of right now. And leading off those guys, I think, we shouldn't bury the lead. He'll be the thumbnail on this episode. He's going to be the one that everyone wants to talk about, Patrick Kane. Scotty, in your opinion, do you think he stays or does he go?
Oh, I mean, goodness. I don't want to give an Yzerman answer here. I don't want to give like the, towing the line type of response, but this is really kind of a 50-50 to me. The Red Wings would obviously love to have Patrick Kane back, and it sounds like Patrick Kane would have no issues coming back, ... if the price is right. And I think that is just entirely what this comes down to, because this is no longer just us negotiating with Kane and there's not really a market for him and nobody else really wants to, touch him and whatnot. This guy's going to have a market. There's going to be somewhat of a bidding war, if you will, for him. Other teams are going to drive up the price. And I think that is, again, it's just totally different than, 6 months ago when we signed him the first time. So I think if I had to guess right now, I would honestly say no, and not from a perspective of, again, the Wings not wanting him back. I just think that we see how, I guess I'll use the word stingy, Yzerman can be with prices and length of term of contracts. And given Patrick Kane's profile, I'm not sure that Yzerman's going to be willing to just throw I don't know if the AAV is going to matter as much to him, but throw, multiple years, several years even onto Kane, given where he's at in his career and the injury and whatnot. So I think I would lean no, but that's again like just kind of a not a shot in the dark, but I'm like 55-45 or like 60-40. Like I think that the Wings would obviously love to have him back and will obviously and absolutely be in contact with his camp about coming back.
Yeah, I mean, we've covered it pretty in depth here this postseason, even a little bit as the season was winding down, because I know he made some comments last week of the season where he was like using past tense and just the thing, was being very non-committal, which is smart. It's a smart business move if you're Patrick Kane. I mean, this was, as you put, a huge prove-it year for him. It was 47 points in 50 games coming off of a surgery that nobody before has ever come back from. And he said in post-game or the postseason availability that he wants term. Like that at this point in his career at 35 years old, he's looking for term rather than AAV. And obviously he's not going to take 4 years at $750,000. He's going to ask for AAV also. But I mean, you're going to get one team who is going to give him that term. And I don't know if Yzerman, who historically hates giving term, especially I would assume to a guy at Kane's age, even though he's still productive, that kind of the term he wants. So if it were up to me, absolutely he's staying. But this is Patrick Kane's choice. And
this is business.
This is business. And I think he probably goes. I think I'm leaning more that way, but I'm not saying it's impossible either. You said what, 55-45, something like that is the way you're leaning?
I think I would be either 55-45 or 60-40. I don't think, I think, again, the Wings, I want to reiterate the point and really drive home. The Wings would love him back, I'm sure. Like, I'm very sure, but it's just going to come down to term and price. And with a big market, that's a question mark.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I think I'm about 60-40. I think 60% he leaves, 40% he stays. Yeah. Because, I mean, the Red Wings have a lot to offer him, right? Like, they were a fringe playoff team this season. They missed on a tiebreaker. He wants to go to a team that can compete. If he stays in Detroit, this team's only going to get better. He's going to be playing with his friend Alex DeBrincat. Like, all the reasons that he came here in the first place
are still
can be the reason he stays, because the Red Wings do have, even though they have got big signings ahead of them, with Seider and Raymond, which we talked about in segment 3 of yesterday's episode, they're still going to have over $10 million of cap space left after that. So it's going to come down to that term, and that's going to be on him to decide. But that's why I think both of us are probably leaning he goes, and not because we want him to, but because he's going to have his list of suitors.
Yep.
Real quick, we're at 8 minutes here, so we can do another quick one here. Let's go to a different forward. I think this is a very easy one for the both of us. Daniel Sprong, Scotty, does he stay or does he go?
I think probably not. I mean, I don't know. He got scratched a decent amount at the beginning at one point in the year. I think I don't think they'd be against like bringing him back on a 1 year. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, but and he had a great season, obviously, and provided a lot of depth scoring. But I don't know. You said this was easy. I can honestly go either way here.
It's easy for me. I think he goes. Obviously, Yzerman said during postseason media availability that he has interest in bringing back all the UFAs, but he also said this team needs to get better defensively. And Daniel Sprong, a lot like Dominik Kubalik, we keep comping him to Dominik Kubalik, is a very one-dimensional player.
For sure.
Like, he's a dynamic offensive player, but for a team that needs defense, he doesn't provide any of it. And that's the reason why down the stretch in the most important games, he was getting scratched, right?
Yeah.
And
I think that's really all you need to know, right?
And while it is super impressive that he had 43 points and 18 goals, playing fourth line minutes, not getting no more than 10 minutes a night, that is impressive offensive output for a depth forward. I think they're looking at Jonathan Berggren as the guy who could probably come into the lineup younger and on a much cheaper contract, although he only made $2 million this year, and replace and replicate that production. So I think that this is, for me personally, a pretty easy, he's gone.
Sure. Yeah, no, I like I said, for me, I think he's gone. Like I said, I think that's where I'm leaning, but it wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world to me if they brought him back on a 1 year kind of cheap deal just for that fourth line production. But I think the biggest thing is just listen to what the team tells you, right? I think that that's overlooked a lot of times in sports in general. Just listen to what the organization is telling you. This guy played, again, fourth line minutes and was scratched even when the team was kind of banged up, was scratched at points in the last 2 months of the season. And that I think kind of tells you all you need to know.
Absolutely. Scotty, we got to head to segment 1 break. And when we return, we'll talk about the other 4 remaining free agents. You got David Perron, Shane Gostisbehere, among a few others. So stay tuned for that in segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Also got to talk to you guys today about FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL, and the Detroit Tigers are in full swing. And guys, they're above 500 in the month of April. Scotty, what year was the last time that's happened?
Before AJ Hinch, for sure.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while. Tigers off to a great start, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every single one of their games. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks. Lots of home runs if you're Riley Green. All on the app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, do you want to go? Let's go now to David Perron. I think there's a really interesting conversation to be had here. I think for me personally, I lean the most in the middle with a guy like David Perron. The last 2 years, he has been, honestly, as advertised. First season, much more so as advertised. But he's coming off a 2-year contract where he got paid $4.75 million. In year 1, he had 56 points in 82 games. He played all 82 games at 34 years old. It was really impressive. 24 goals, 32 assists for 56 points, which was right on pace for where his career was at that point. Like, honestly, he's gotten better as he's aged. From the Vegas season on, he's been a 60, 50-point player consistently. But then you saw the production dip a little bit this past year, where he played 76 games, only had 17 goals, 30 assists for 47, which is probably more in line with his career average. Down a tick, but more in line with where his career average lies. We saw a little bit of a dip in his step, a little slower as he ages. Still a good puck protector, still very good on the power play. But I feel at this point, as a UFA, he's not a top 6 forward anymore. And so it makes it a little bit harder to justify bringing him back. And that leads me to my question for you, Scotty. Is his leadership enough? Is his leadership alone enough to bring him back, to justify re-signing him?
I don't know. Let me talk about just like this situation in general. I think in a vacuum, I don't have an issue with bringing back David Perron, but it would be in a bottom 6 role for bottom 6 money. And I don't know how. I mean, he's in the twilight of his career. Maybe he is, like very understanding of that situation and just kind of wants to like stay here no matter what, and is willing to take the pay cut and the role cut and whatnot. It seems like everybody loves him in the locker room, and it seems like he is a valuable and an important voice in the locker room. It's I don't know. Like my standing of the situation is if everyone is on the same page about role and contract, sure, I would be totally fine with giving David Perron, third line minutes, third line, kind of be a depth winger on this team, and again, the contract matches that role. But if there's even a remote expectation that he is going to be, like a key fixture in this offense, then no. Like I would say no.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at too. I would say he goes if the expectation is he's in the same role.
Right.
But considering the fact that he was very clear he wants to stay, and Yzerman made it clear that he's open to bringing back the free agents, I think that there's a reality. He doesn't seem like a super ego guy. He seems and I don't think it can be argued, the locker room presence that he's had just based on everything that we've heard about him from his teammates and from general management. Like, it feels like this is a guy they love to have on the team, and he has been very clutch. He's been very frustrating at times. Like I've said this season, like, we're playing him on the top 6 out of necessity, but like that hole needs to be filled because he can't play top 6 minutes anymore.
Yeah.
But he's still good on the power play, and I'm completely with you that if they can reduce his role, play him in the bottom 6, and reduce him, because you can't pay him $4.75 million anymore. Like, you just can't.
Correct. Yeah. Not even like close, to be honest.
Like, but that's where it comes down to. Like, I'm okay with it in that regard. But if you're going to ask me straight up if he stays or if he goes, I think I'm leaning more he stays. I think I am leaning more he stays. I think he would be willing to take that reduced role. I think he just loves being here and love ushering in the young guys and being that leader. But I'll be honest, it's the exact opposite of the Patrick Kane situation. That's the simplest way I can put it. I think it's 60% he stays, 40% he goes, maybe even 70-30 he stays, he goes. I think that you can upgrade over that position with a younger player, but at the same time, I think that playoff experience is invaluable. I think the locker room leadership is invaluable, and I think he can still be effective in a reduced role.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with all of that. So I think I would lean, man.
It's tough.
I think I would lean he goes, but again, I don't want to repeat everything we just said, but yeah, if the role and the term are right, I have no issue with him coming back. I'm not sure how plausible that is.
Yeah, absolutely. The next guy on this, I think this one might be, I said Daniel Sprong was the easiest one, but then you didn't agree. So maybe this will be the easiest one in the episode for the two of us to agree on. Christian Fischer, he stays?
I think that's the easiest one. Yeah. I would love Christian Fischer back. I think that he's a dog, as we all know, but I think that he is proved that he is a valuable depth forward on this team. Blocks a lot of shots, plays good defense, which is something that this team wants, kind of top to bottom in the lineup. He fits the profile. He fits the system. He can, not going to get a ton of production out of him, but and is a special teams guy too, right? You can put him on the penalty kills. So yeah, I honestly, I would be kind of surprised if he wasn't back.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't make a lot of money either, and that's the biggest thing. He came here on a 1-year, $1.125 million deal. So for a guy who's a great forechecker, he's physical, and he plays special teams very well, and he's good defensively. Like, yeah, you're not going to get a lot of offensive output out of him, but he's going to be playing fourth line minutes, 10 minutes a night, so that's fine. I think even if you give him a little bit of a raise to $1.5 million, like, this is just such an easy, for me, slam dunk of just having a special teams-esque guy to come back, which is so funny. I mean, you flash back, you rewind to our episode where we talk about this guy, right?
I remember when we acquired him and we were like, he'll probably be the 13th forward.
We were like, why did we sign this guy? Who is he? We're like, 13th forward, he probably won't play. And now we're saying he's a slam dunk to come back just because he's still young. He's on the right side of 30. He's not going to be asking for a lot of money, and he plays a very important role on the fourth line. So I just think that he's kind of carved out his niche here in Detroit. And I think he'll I don't know how long of a contract he'll get. I'm not going to make any estimations on that, but I think he'll be pretty easy one to choose to stick around.
Yeah, no, I like I said, I think that is I am of the opinion that it would be I would be surprised if he was not back.
Yeah, I would agree. We're going to do another quick break, and then when we return, we'll talk about Shane Gostisbehere and James Reimer. So stay tuned for that in segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. Got to talk to you guys today about Sleeper. We're into the NHL playoffs. The Red Wings, unfortunately, are not there, but they're still exciting nonetheless. I'm enjoying watching the Capitals get killed by the Rangers. Yes, I'm petty. But
dude, how about the Hurricanes game?
That was the 2 goals in 9 seconds to steal the game against the Islanders. Another team that maybe shouldn't be there with their 16 overtime losses.
Patrick Waugh losing. I'm so upset.
Mm-hmm. I love Gil, though. So, like, if the Islanders win, I'd be happy for Gil, the Locked On Islanders host. And regardless of where any of these teams are in their playoff series, I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is the #1 choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey. Because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid, Seth Jarvis for the Carolina Hurricanes, maybe Artemi Panarin for the New York Rangers, will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, plus, minus, and if you pick a goalie, you can even choose saves in a given game. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Red Wings fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks, and you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKDOWNNHL, and you'll get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKDOWNNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Finally, also got to talk to you guys today about Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could pick the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed. They're the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. I saw that, Scotty. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching assessments and virtual interviews. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application, pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Indeed you do.
Bang. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Let's cut right to the chase here. Shane Gostisbehere, does he stay or does he go? Now, to note, I know I asked the question, but to note, going into this, he will lead all defensemen hitting the free agent market, all the unrestricted free agents hitting the free agent market in points. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Does he stay? Does he go?
Yeah, I'm going to go with he goes. This is a wild one. Like, this is maybe the weirdest, I guess is the word, conversation we'll have this entire episode. He was very valuable offensively. He was very valuable on the power play. He was at one point, he was top 5 in the team in points. I don't know where he ended. But up there, right? He was one of the bigger point producers on the entire roster. But you had to hide him on the third pair and only deploy him in the offensive zone pretty much the entire season because he's a liability defensively. But also, to your point, when you look at the defenseman market, he is going to be one of the more higher profile offensive defensemen in the entire UFA pool. So I think that all of those things considered, I'm going to go with no. I think that the Wings also want to just kind of break up this defensive core a little bit, not core as in like core of the team, but this defensive unit, this defenseman room, I think they want to break it up a little bit. And I think that this is an opportunity to do so. This was a 1-year deal for a reason on Gostisbehere's perspective, right? He signed a 1-year deal so that he could put up a lot of points, then be a UFA again and get a bigger deal. I think that that's probably what he's looking for. I don't think that he will come back, but Yzerman did speak pretty highly of him. This wouldn't be like the most shocking thing in the world to me if he did return. But right now, I would say pretty solidly that he didn't.
Well, that's exactly it too, right? You mentioned that Yzerman spoke very highly of him, and like Yzerman made it sound like he was going to make an effort, and that's my interpretation. You guys go listen to the media availability. He speaks so highly of him, it almost makes it seem like he's going to make an effort to resign him. I, like you, Scotty, I'm personally against that. And like it is insane. He had 56 points this year. He leads all defensemen going into the free agent class, all unrestricted free agent defensemen this upcoming free agency in points. But we watched him night in and night out get only offensive zone deployments, get the easiest matchups against other teams, competition, and, lead the power play where a lot of his points came
from.
Play
10 minutes of even strength hockey.
Yeah, and he gets in the defensive zone and he just becomes a massive liability. And you add into that the fact that your Edvinsson is going to be here next year. Albert Johansson should be here next year. And you wonder, where's the room for a Shane Gostisbehere? Like, you have to make room on the blue line. And I feel like Moritz Seider is ready to take on that first power play line. And I would argue has to take on that first power play quarterback role from Shane Gostisbehere, because Seider's very capable of it. And I think you need to give Seider on top of the responsibility he's already given, because your number one D-men have to take the toughest competition. And we've talked about it, your other D-men, your other top D-men across the league also get time against the softer competition too. And that's how they become most effective offensively. That's how those other teams, they're leveled out. So they're not at the top of the chart in the process of getting their 27 minutes. You need to have Seider take on some of Shane Gostisbehere's roles offensively, because he's capable of it. He had 50 points his first year. Like, Seider has an offensive upside that's kind of untapped. And despite that, he still had 40 plus points this season. So I feel like Shane Gostisbehere, despite the fact that he had 56 points, which is crazy to say, I think he needs to go just for the sole factor of he's a liability at 5-on-5. And because of that, you have to increase the difficulty of every other defensive pair you put out there. And like, there's just not space on the roster for me, in my opinion, for Shane Gostisbehere. I
don't know if I'm as much in the camp of like he needs to go. I'm not welcoming him back. I think if they did that, I would be able to justify the move in my
I'd be
head.
able to spin the narrative.
Yeah, for sure. I would be able to understand like where the organization is coming from. But I think because of everything you just laid out, the Wings aren't going to be pressed and make him a super high priority to come back. And I would imagine that he is going to have a decent market for all of those reasons as well. And I don't think he's going to be a super high priority, especially given how much he may end up getting paid. So I'm going to say no. I'm going to say he's not going to come back. But in the same breath, if they were able to shake up the blue line in other ways, right? If they were to get rid of Hall, if they were able to, find a way to remove Petrie, maybe. Like, if they were able to make room other ways, I could very easily justify his return to the roster too.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. Anyways, Scotty, final player on our list here, James Reimer, 36 years old, UFA. You already have two goalies still under contract for one more year, and Husso and Lyon. What say you? Stay or go?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty easy go for me, and that's not that Reimer had an awful year. It's just you're in a whole new offseason with new goalies available. And you know what I mean? Like if you really want a third goalie again, you can upgrade from Reimer. And again, given where he's at in his career, I think he earned himself another year. So good for him, right? This was a guy who had a sub 900 in San Jose before we gave him a chance. And given his age, if he really struggled again this year, that was probably it. That was probably wraps on the career. So good for him. Credit where credit's due. I think he earned another 1-year deal somewhere in the league, but I don't think it's going to be here.
And that's the wild thing with James Reimer too, right? Like going into the season, we talked about how we think he's going to have a bounce back year, be above 900 again in the save percentage. You know, he might decline a little bit just due to age, but we didn't think that his 890 save percentage that he had in San Jose was what he really was. And then he did all of that. He has a 904 save percentage, which Scotty is above league average by just 1 percentage point, but it is above league average. Like league average save percentage this year is 903. He had a 904. And so, like, by all accounts, yes, he had a bounce back year. But again, we watched him play every game. We know the heart attack he gives us. And like the fact that from those low danger shots, he always seemed to let in. He always let in these weird ones. He has a chaotic play style. But I agree that he played good enough with a 904 save percentage that a team will take a flyer on him. But with the fact, like you said, again, with Lyon and Husso still under contract, and the fact that Sebastian Cossa took a huge step forward in his development this year, I think you have your tandem of Husso, Lyon next year, and you might sign a third goalie. They seem to like that, but I think you could find a younger option to fill that role, as well as if the injury happens, now you have Sebastian Cossa, who I would think they give spot starts to next year if he just, if he picks up next year where he left off in the AHL. But he's been great. So I think you have a very simple tandem right there with Husso, Lyon. And I think if Husso can stay healthy, that's an upgrade. Instead of Lyon and Reimer, I think Lyon and Husso is an upgrade. I know the stats this year don't belay that, but Husso only played like 13 games and he was hurt for the bulk majority of it. So I think that I do still have faith in Husso to be an effective member of a tandem, not necessarily number one goalie like I used to think, but I think he can still be an upgrade as part of a tandem with Alex Lyon for at least one more year. And I think that just kind of makes James Reimer, what's the word I'm looking for? Not necessary.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I fully expect them to bring in a goalie from the outside this summer. Like that is something I'm very keen on. I would be stunned if they didn't. Now that doesn't mean a high end starter. It might just be a guy that is like doesn't have to clear waivers and you can get him on a 2-way deal or like an AHL deal or something. But like with Husso's injury history, Lyon's just career history, and the fact that Cossa hasn't made his NHL debut yet, I would be flabbergasted if they did not bring in any goalie of any capacity this summer. And I just think that they are going to be looking and comparing and contrasting who is out there, who's able to come in versus Reimer, and they're going to go with someone from the outside and not make Reimer just a high priority. But I would be floored if they did not address good. They just didn't touch goalie all summer.
Absolutely. Scott, do you have any final thoughts on today's episode?
I don't think so, man. We ball.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.